from a married woman.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she was married?
Yeah.
That's a good call. Yeah. Be careful with the
She was my
therapist.
therapist as well.
I was going to say,
But it's like even therapists, like you're supposed to tell your problems to your family, your siblings, your cousins, not strangers that don't have your best interests at heart. I think anyways. But it's like in a modern society, it's like we're outsourcing all the stuff you used to do together. And because there's no emphasis on family, there's no value in family anymore.
And women used to come together as well in communities. You don't even have that.
And they used to actually want you to win because they were married and happy with their husbands.
Exactly.
But now it's like you get older single women telling you the wrong. So like I see older single women telling. I had a girl on my show last week, and I asked her like, would you encourage your daughters to wait till they're married? When if you're a virgin on your wedding night, you have an 80% chance of a happy marriage. Wouldn't that be good for you? And she couldn't even, this is her daughter.
No,
and it's like, this is the culture we have. It's like, we don't even encourage purity in our youth anymore.
Can I ask a question about that stat? Does that is that just straight people, or could that include like the colourfuls?
No, it's straight.
So that's only straight people?
Yeah, so there's a couple different studies. So some of them will say 70% chance. Some will say, so it's not specifically 80. The most drastic one, it goes 80% chance when you're a virgin on your wedding night, and then it drops to 50% chance when you have two partners. And when you get to 5, you're down to 25 to 20% chance of a happy marriage.
Really? So low?
Yeah. What?
Oh, wait, I was talking about the other stat.
For women.
Wait, I was talking about the other stat, Pearl.
Which one?
You know when you said that 50% of people would be childless and single past 30, the 2030?
Women.
It's just women. So I'm saying, is that stat just for straight people? Because if I'm not straight,
I think it probably counts lesbian women too. Let me 2030.
Because they're not going to have any kids, are they? Like,
who?
You'd be surprised. They'd be adopting left, right, and centre.
You can have IVF and get donors. Like there's ways of lesbian couples having babies.
Or gay couples adopting.
Yeah, of course.
No,
or having a
I just think education.
You guys, I was wrong. It's 45%, not 50. My bad.
It's not that far.
I know that's what they do. I'll get it wrong by like 5%.
Like,
they'll
you're
be like,
wrong.
Pearl's lying. I'm like, I didn't mean to. It's estimated that 45% of women aged 25 to 45 will be single by 2030, according to a study by Morgan Stanley. With the modern dating market, nearly half of women in their childbearing years will be without a male counterpart. There's a few reasons for this prediction. 1, women aren't getting married young anymore. We have so many other options for what to do with our lives that getting married is no longer the default option. We're focusing on our careers, going to grad school, traveling, our friends and extended social circles, and taking time to find the right guy. 2, we aren't having babies like we used to. With more options for birth control than ever and somewhat reliable treatments for infertility, the pressure to have kids within a certain time frame just isn't there anymore. And with the pressure gone, so is the urgency to get married for the sake of starting a family. So many women are single, that is unmarried, and will remain that way for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Because I saw a stat whereby
now I understand you.
I was going to say that most young people under the age of I think they said it was 18 or 20, 21, I think it was, but they said that 40% of them identify as colourful. So we already know that it's going to be low child rate anyway, in a sense. No,
40% of kids under 18,
under 21 identify as colourful. Yeah. Or
what does that mean? Colourful.
Gay or lesbian or
LGBTQ.
LGBTQ.
Oh.
All of that fun stuff.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
I just
are
don't
you
like
bi?
people that. What? I thought you were lying.
I'm being serious.
Shut up.
Is that under 21? Did you say?
I think.
Hold on.
I think it was that.
Okay, nearly 40% of U.S. Gen Zs, 30% of young Christians identify as LGBTQ, poll says. 30% of millennials identify as LGBTQ, according to soon-to-be released study that is based on the scientific polling data. Among Christians, the number was lower, but only slightly, with just 30% of millennial Christians identifying as LGBTQ. This proportion of the population that describes itself as gay has varied over the years from 10% based on research by Alfred Kinsley and widely promoted by the National Gay Task Force in 1977 to less than 6% in a recent Gallup poll. The pollster who worked the new study attributes the unusually high number he found to social and news media coverage that make it safe and cool for young Americans to identify as LGBTQ, whether or not it represents their sexual orientation. Wow.
Is that like bisexual? Does bisexual like still go under?
Probably.
I was going to say so that.
It's the B.
So I mean, yeah, okay.
40%.
I think
It's still a high number, like, do you know what I mean? That's why it will be a low birth rate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but you can still
Among
have,
all the other
I
problems.
reckon a lot of those people will want to have kids.
You can still have kids. As long as you've got money. As long as you've got money to have IVF, then you can still they can still have kids.
Yeah.
Like it's probably easier.
No, wrong.
What?
Wrong.
What to have IVF?
Hold on, I'm gonna find these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean it depends on your age for IVF, but I'm trying to find this. It's okay. I just looked up the failure rates for IVF, 61.1% in women under 34, 73.7% in women 35 to 38, 86.2% in women 39 to 42, and 94.4% in women over 43. So if you're under 34, you still are more likely that IVF will not work.
Yeah, it's more likely to not work than it is to work.
Wow, only 25% chance if you're 35 to 38.
It's crazy. But then again, the people that's under 25 that's trying to get IVF is probably because they can't get kids.
Well, because they're a lesbian couple.
But yeah, we're talking if they're...
my bad. I forgot about
that. They're missing a key element of the...
But why do you think they push IVF as an option if it doesn't seem like a very good one according to the numbers?
Because it makes them money.
I mean, well, as a lesbian couple, that's kind of like, unless you're going to step out of have sex.
Gives you hope.
No, it was because he was saying, the colourful, I don't know, I'm now copying what he said. LGBT community won't have children. And I'm like, well, they can. It's still a possibility because they can have IVF.
Why do you guys think they push that?
Do you mean
I agree. Money making.
Money making?
For sure.
I think they're doing it so you have like... not hope, but like it's okay because you always got IVF. Like it's all right to do this because you got IVF. Like in a sense where, you know what I'm saying, they give you like a backup, like
to prolong having children.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think they try and give you all these options. It's like it's the same argument with like the whole being a single parent and this whole argument of like, oh, I don't need a man because I can still have a baby. Like without a man, I can get a sperm donor. I can adopt. I'm actually adopted, so like I know quite a lot about it. You can't adopt if you're a single parent. They won't give a child to a single parent because it's not good for them.
I mean, my aunt had 3 with, and she was a single parent.
How?
Adopted children in the Lake District. I don't know how, but she had them. And then my cousin has to foster them because my aunt died. But that is a possibility. It happened.
The social services.
She adopted.
She was single when
She's single.
She's always been single.
way.
Because she was. They all have quite extensive special needs, and she was quite.
Skilled.
My uncle had special needs, so she used to look after him, and then she was no longer able to care for him. She had three children.
I think what social services would do, they will look at each case individually.
Yeah, the general rule is
that
they won't give a child to a single parent home just because of the statistics of single parent homes. Like generally they try and place a child with 2 parents, but also like the kind of kids that get adopted is really low anyway. So it's like people can say
fosters.
People can say, oh, I can adopt, I can do this, but at the end of the day is like, is the kind of child that you want going to be up for grabs? And chances are no. Like the most adopted type of child is a white female girl under the age of 1, which is what I was. Yeah. And I'm one of the lucky ones. Something like, I think, this is probably really incorrect statistics, but I think it's something like 50,000 kids get put into care each year. Out of those that are adopted, it's like 2,000. Last year it was just under 2,000. And It's going down every single year. Yeah. Because people don't want to adopt because they don't want to adopt the children that are older, special needs.
That's what I was going to ask.
And boys, people don't want to adopt boys either because there's stigma around boys who are adopted rather than girls because they see girls as more easy to mould. So people prefer picking a girl over a boy. This is all from data because when you go to adopt a child, you have to fill out a questionnaire of like what kind of child you want. Like it's kind of like a pick a baby program. Yeah.
Wait, so what?
You pick what you're open to and what you're not open to.
Out of the 50,000 kids, you said 50,000
I think it's something like that. It could even be higher, but...
Do you know what percent are under the age of like 2?
Oh, really small. Like it's majority is older children.
That's what I thought. Because my mom, when she gave my brother up for adoption, she said it was really easy to find a family. But from what I understand, if you give a baby up for adoption, usually they'll find a family. Yes. But if they're over a certain age,
if they're over 3, I think it gets harder.
And the problem is women will try to keep babies that they can't take care of, so then the services will take them away. So then you have like a traumatized
That's
kid.
What happened to me. So I was actually born in the oldest mental institution in the world, and I was taken away because my mother couldn't cope. And
where was that? What's the
Bedlam?
Oh, was that still going?
It's now called Bethlehem Royal Hospital. Louis Theroux actually did a documentary on the mother and baby unit where I was kept. Yeah. But
where actually is that? It's South London, isn't it?
Yeah, it's South London. It's near West Wickham, Beckenham kind of way.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But yeah, it's still going.
And how old were you?
So my mother was sectioned when she was pregnant with me, and then I was actually taken away at, I think... The first incident was probably I was like 4 weeks old, and then I was placed into care when I was about a month and a half, and then I was in care until I was 9 months old, and I was adopted. Well, I was placed with my adoptive parents at 9 months old, but because she wouldn't consent to the adoption, it had to go through the courts, and I was officially adopted in 2003, so I would have been 3, and that's when my name changed. But I've actually been with my adopted parents since I was 9 months old.
Oh, so you got lucky.
I got extremely lucky. I'm so lucky because there's so many kids out there who don't get the chance. And I'm really lucky in the sense of like when I ask my parents, like, why did you adopt me? They don't say like, oh, because we wanted a kid, all of this. I think that's kind of a bad reason to adopt. It's like that child then feels like they have to conform to like the idea of your perfect child. My dad always says to me, we just wanted to give someone a chance.
Can I say something? So, they look like they did a good job.
Thank you very much. They're amazing people.
Yeah.
You know, I've been on both sides of adoption, like where we've taken in kids and given up kids. And age, I didn't realize how important it was until I knew someone from a church I was in. They adopted 2 boys, and one was under the age of 2 and one was like 5. And the 5-year-old was like messed up for it. He can't even remember what happened.
It's because of the trauma that happens and the neurological development of the brain. The first year of your life is extremely important, and up to the age of 3, like anything that happens before the age of 3 is kind of set into the building blocks of who you are, and it can be really hard to unlearn that. And adopted children all have the same attachment type. It's the body knows whether you get told you're adopted or not. The body knows that it's been separated from something, so you're always going to have some kind of distorted attachment style, and that's why you need to be placed with good adopted parents that understand that, because adopted children are the hardest children to parent. So because they're confused.
What attachment style do you have then? Is it a specific one or?
So it's not one of the 3 bulby ones. It's not avoidant, secure, or the other one. There's anxious. A 4th one, and that's adopted children.
Oh really? Okay.
Anxious avoidant. Is it a combination of both?
It's got like a different name.
I'm that one. Is it this one confused avoidant?
It's something about being confused. It's something about like needing to fill a void because you've had something stripped. So it's something about like trying to fill a void, and you get attached to things quite easily. Even things like ideas. Like I'm a really passionate person. Like if I'm like really into a film, I'm really into that film. So it's things like that. It's just this kind of I think it's this kind of like desperateness within, like in the child sense anyway, because the child is kind of desperate for something to cling on to. And it depends as well if you've been through multiple foster parents. That messes you up even more because you build your primary attachment with your mother and then your secondary attachment with your father. Obviously, that then gets broken. So, like with me, for example, I didn't meet my biological father. He wasn't around. My mother, I'd obviously built an attachment to her. I was with her for a good month before I was stripped from her. Then I was placed in care. So then I built another attachment with the mother who looked after me in foster care. And then that was stripped, and then I was finally adopted. So that's 3 broken mother attachments. And it's really interesting because me and my adopted dad are really close, and everyone says we're the exact same person. And that's because I never met my biological dad. In foster care, there was no paternal figure around, and then I was placed with my adopted dad. So the relationship I got to form with him came naturally, whereas with my mother growing up, we conflicted a lot because I can say this now as an adult because I know now, but as a child, I didn't trust her because I thought, well, you're going to leave like the other 2 did.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on there that when you're a kid, you have no idea like why any of this is happening. When you get older, if you're lucky enough and blessed as I was to have parents who can help you get through things and support you through therapy and things like that, you can figure it out and you'll be all right.
And it's so interesting because the 2 brothers that I knew, the difference in them is so crazy. Like the younger one, he's like a super talented musician. He's like the nicest guy at the church. Like he was so involved. And the other one like stole money from the church. He like was involved in all these crimes. His family like put him in the military because they just didn't know what to do. Like it's so crazy, and it's just, and neither of them remember anything. Yeah. But one was just 5, and one was just, I don't know, 1, 2. So it's, I know what you're.
I mean, I can't remember. Like, I don't remember anything. I was under the age of 1. I have no recollection. But it is really interesting because there are things that you do that you can trigger with things like therapy to remember. So I've always had a really bad fear of needles, and I never knew why. I've got tattoos. I've got piercings. It's not normal needles, it's specifically medical needles, and I never knew why until in therapy I actually discovered. As a kid, I used to say to my parents, I feel like I saw my birth mother get sedated. I always used to say, I think that's why I'm scared of needles, because maybe I saw something like that, or maybe when I was in her womb, something like that. And obviously there was no way I could have possibly known until when I got older, I met someone who was there when I was in the mental institution, and I did. As a baby, I saw her get sedated a bunch of times. So I knew my whole life as a child, I knew that I saw that. But then people will say, well, how could you know? You're under the age of 1. But I did know. That's unbelievable. The mind remembers everything. You just have to dig it out.
Do you have any, can I ask, do you have any contact with your mother now?
No, I can't. She's dangerous. And my biological father's side aren't the friendliest of people. Not very accepting. But I'm so lucky. Like, my adopted family is great. Like, I can't complain.
Now, the crazy thing that happened in our family was my one brother I didn't meet till I was 22. So my mom got pregnant when she was 17. Same mom and dad, but they were just young. And when I met him when he was 22, he was more similar to my family than the adopted kid. I mean, granted, the adopted kids were teenagers, but I mean, still, they spent more time with our family than he did. Yeah. And literally he was 31 when we met him, and he walked like my brother. He studied economics in school. I studied economics in school. His family was in like two kids there was 2 kids, and they never left the like small town they were from. And he owned a sailboat company. Like, literally his brother never left the town. His parents never, like, they just didn't like to travel, didn't like to do anything adventurous. Obviously I'm in London, we travel in my family. So it was so crazy because it was like we met him, and he's just like our family, even though we had 0 contact.
Genetics. So much nature, so much nurture.
And I used to think it was all nurture because of single motherhood stats. So I would think, well, if these are the outcomes when they're in these positions, like, it has to be much worse, or it has to be more nurture until.
No, nature is a huge
until I met my brother, that's my opinion.
Epigenetics, that you have mutations in what trauma can create. They say up until conception, from a man ejaculating from a woman, like any trauma that your grandmother would have had, because obviously your mother was in your womb and you were also.
It's all coded in your DNA.
It's all coded in your DNA.
Yeah. Get out of here, man.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to believe in it. Go on, science. It's science.
That's why they say generational curses are real.
It almost went into my brain and stayed there. That just went out. One ear went out the other. You're trying to say the grandchild is genetically.
So
we have all of our eggs. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, when my mum was pregnant with me.
Yeah.
No, when my grandmother was pregnant with my mum, I was inside of my mum. when I was inside of her tummy. So any
What?
trauma.
Wait, what?
Also, it doesn't mean trauma as in the when we say trauma, we don't mean situational trauma of things like memories. So when we say that trauma is encoded in the DNA, we mean the product of that trauma. So for example, trauma is really highly linked to autoimmune disorders because the body stores stress. When you're stressed, when you're going through some kind of trauma that exerts stress on the body, you release loads of cortisol, and that cortisol affects how your organs work. It affects your fight or flight response, things like that. So when we say that the trauma is encoded in the DNA, we don't mean, oh, you remember something that happened to your grandma in the 1920s. We mean the product of that trauma is embedded in the DNA, so you then might have health issues that are linked to that trauma. The body remembers everything, even if the mind doesn't.
I don't agree with that.
You don't
It's
have to.
Just like how I don't agree with that cancer is hereditary. I don't believe it.
We all have dormant cancer cells, like everybody.
I think a lot of cancer is
they?
caused from parasites.
Yeah, but that means the dormant cells are there, no? I don't know. I'm not a cancer
No, but
expert.
in terms of what you said, I did not know that your eggs are in you when you're born. What do you mean?
Yeah, you have your eggs.
Your eggs. That's how our egg count, as we get older, that's how we hit a wall. And men don't, because your sperm's like produced. Ours.
So you're
We're
saying,
born with a certain amount of eggs.
You're saying you're born with eggs in you.
Yeah.
Well, where else do they come from?
Come on.
Really? Are you joking?
Man,
Oh my
come on.
God.
Generational
I don't
curses
believe
are
it.
Born with eggs.
No,
It's real.
we're born with eggs. He believe what? Where?
Do you think we grow eggs?
So you
Do you think we just grow eggs?
do you think our
Regularly.
sperm is always there, or do
No,
we grow
because you're
sperm?
different.
You produce. I don't know.
How do I produce it?
sperm?
And you
They
don't produce
they?
eggs.
But we have.
I thought your
that's how-
ovaries do
That's
that.
how women.
No,
that's how
we
women,
have a set amount of eggs.
That's
and
how women.
Yeah, you have a set
lose.
amount of eggs after you're born, not
No.
before you're born.
They're
Like what?
Where do you think they come from? Like, if
Your body-
they're
your
after
body-
you're born,
Once
then
our
Your body
reproductive.
produces it.
I love
It's
how
an
this
egg.
is all happening,
It's
and
an
the
egg.
question was.
So you're trying to tell me a chicken has a million eggs
We're
in it
not
already?
chickens.
No, but I'm just saying for an example,
Okay,
like how does the chicken make the egg in it? Like its body makes it. Like,
Okay, first.
I think we need to do science school.
I can't wait
As
to
well as wife
see
school.
the clip.
no, Pearl,
We need to do
the
science
statistic
school.
woman,
I
can just
know.
Google it and
As
find
well as
out
school.
and put us out our misery.
What do you?
Are women born with eggs in them?
oh my!
Like before they're born?
Yeah.
Oh, my head hurts.
Like I know there's someone smart in the super chat that would donate 100 to let us know.
Current knowledge indicates that females are born with their entire lifetime supply of gametes at birth. The normal female ovary contains 1 to 2 million eggs.
See, look, I learn something new every day.
But you didn't want to believe it.
You're
this
born
thing-
with 2 million eggs. God damn, I did not know that.
That's a lot. But this thing about generational trauma, this thing about trauma that gets passed down, though, that's really interesting. But you're saying it's not trauma. So what about?
When I say trauma, I
She
don't.
means
I
the
don't.
stress
I
of
mean,
it.
Stress
I
of the
mean
really-
trauma
She's the
on
only
the body.
she's the only girl on my show that said trauma and it hasn't triggered me.
Yeah, no.
It's because she went into a scientific element of it and explained what she meant.
Well, because that just wouldn't
Mom,
make
my
any sense.
ex-boyfriend cheated on me. I've
I've got trauma.
Yeah.
So wait, okay.
Are you still stuck on the eggs and
No. Okay, so that opens a different can of worms
a
then.
whole new world?
That opens a different can of worms then. Because if you're born with the eggs, yeah, and you're out doing your thing, isn't that going to affect your great-great-grandchildren?
What do you mean out doing your
It's not
thing?
till you're pregnant that, like, obviously, because
Yeah.
What?
anything actually environmental anything that you do whilst you're alive, yes,
Yeah.
it will affect your body.
So you mean
Yeah.
You will hold on to stress.
Yeah, 304 in.
Well, that
Yeah,
affects
obviously.
you anyway. You shouldn't be doing that anyway, just for your own mental health and sanity.
So
but-
if you're OnlyFans and stuff, and then your eggs are there watching, and then
Your eggs are affected, like, so it's not just you, innit? Like,
Yeah,
so when
100%. And for men, up until like even for you guys, if you're smoking, that can cause the harm in your sperm when the conception happens. Anything you do up until ejaculation will affect your child as well. So same.
protect it.
Okay.
And this all stems from
No, I wasn't even talking about
in 2030. There's going to be 45%.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Why do you guys think that? Who did you?
I said
way off, but sorry.
we just need to be more educated within the relationship and more like life
Then
skills.
we talked about outsourcing families.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're next. Why do you think that half of women will be single and childless?
I think that is because women have, more. I feel like we're at more of a position now to not rely on men as much, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. So yeah, I don't think that statistic is inherently negative. If anything, I think it's positive because I think it shows that people are putting more thought into having children rather than just having children because it's what we should do. They're having children because